and dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
And welcome to Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.tv. Thank you for joining me this evening. We are going to dive into some more politics here in this 2016 election. And to really start off, I am going to get into a Ron Paul Liberty report over the Hillary emails. And we're going to discuss, is this going to lead to a Bernie Sanders nomination? What does this mean for Hillary Clinton? And it's something that we should not expect anything real to come out of it. We hope that, she is held accountable, but we can't expect it. But I think what it will do is expose government even more to the populace. The one problem I have is, do enough of the populace understand true freedom, true liberty, and the individual rights, rather than the socialist outlook. Now, voluntarily being, a socialist, saying I'm going to take, my wealth and distribute it and help people out is one thing, but a forced government socialism only leads to a authoritarian, communist, fascist type scenario. Many people will claim, the left socialist, would equate to a communist, and the right socialist or right big government, progressives, neocons will lead to a fascist. And, when you hear, I've heard that for years. And when you look at the potential for Bernie Sanders and a potential for Trump, you wonder if that's coming true in your lifetime. You hope not. But, you have to take a critical and hard look at what's going on right now and also equate it to our history throughout the world and empires. So I want to get into this Ron Paul Liberty report. Hillary's emails, is the end at hand? So we'll go ahead and dive into this one here.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams, who is also the Executive Director of the Institute for Peace and Prosperity, and our co-host. Daniel, good to see you.
Good morning, Dr. Paul.
Good. I have a couple problems I'm going to have you help me solve today, and that is sort out who's going to be the Democratic nominee, whether Hillary's going to survive the emails, because a big event happened just yesterday. The Justice Department, in their wheeling and dealing efforts, sometimes they do good, sometimes they don't do so much good, and they have granted immunity. The whole principle of immunity sort of makes me nervous because of all the things that can be as a consequence. Anyway, that's the way the system works. So immunity was given to the individual, Pagliose, who was the individual who set up Hillary's email in a house, the private email. And so that raised this question: why did she do it? What was the real purpose? And what is the goal? And it's been discovered. We've known it now, I think, for almost a year. And it's a big political issue. It's a legal issue. But because it's a legal issue, it's also a bigger political issue. And a lot of people are paying a lot of attention to this. But it's been very tempting by many, including myself, to think of this in terms of Petraeus, because he was a great war hero. He took orders as he was instructed to, participated in an illegal, unconstitutional war, and he was the great general, and he's loved by all the warriors. And he knows all about counterinsurgencies and surges that have no effect. But anyway, he had a similar problem of information that was supposed to be secret, and a close friend of his ended up getting some of this. So then the big question that we're going to ask today in this little visit is, does this look like it might be the end for Hillary? Or, the Clintons have been able to escape a lot, the two of them, especially Bill. Or is this the end? If you looked at it as pure justice and legalese, it might be easy, but there were times when people thought it's the end of Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton a long time ago. So that's really the big question on what's likely to happen here.
Well, it's a huge issue, and there are similarities with the Petraeus episode, and that there was an issue of intent. Petraeus, as we know, was the circumstances around his disclosure are more sensational, and his intent was clear. But Hillary, at the same time, had a clear intent. She wanted to set up a server, regardless of what she said. She said it was for convenience sake. She wanted a server in her house. But the intent of Hillary to have her own server was to avoid certain documents becoming government documents and then susceptible to being FOIA'd, the Freedom of Information Act. We know from the emails that were released, she got a lot of advice for people who weren't in government. Sid Blumenthal is one. Constant emails. This would have been part of the government's record and would have been subject to being hit with the Freedom of Information Act request and other things. So she, for the interest of keeping things secret from the government, she actually allowed a lot of very, very highly classified documents to be possibly intercepted by foreign powers, by hackers, what have you. So there clearly was an intent to go around the rules on both.
But in a precise sense of her delivering information to a person, I don't think they have the evidence of that. I think what you described is pretty accurate, but she didn't hand over. And that's a difference where Petraeus literally handed over some documents to an individual. But, ironically, we talk a lot about privacy, and I complain that the government is too secret, that we should know more, and our privacy should be protected and not abused by our government. But this is another example of, there's might have been interdepartmental and administration bickering going on. She didn't want them to see everything, but there was the future that she was looking at. But then again, keeping it out of the public record is excluding the American people. Mm-hmm. What she was doing was to be secret. Then she could write her memoirs as she decided they would be. And yet, once again, I think this is designed. So that to me is that's probably not the that motivation probably doesn't have much legal ramifications to it, but it's also something pretty annoying about these people who think they're immune to following the laws.
Well, this is an enormous political problem for President Obama and his administration, because on the one hand, there certainly must be a lot of pressure, because with the stroke of a pen, he could literally let her off the hook. There must be a lot of pressure not to destroy the presumptive front runner and next Democratic candidate for president. But on the other hand, there is the issue of the Justice Department not seeming too overtly political. And there's the idea of selective prosecution. People like Petraeus, who got off relatively easy. And if Hillary gets off, there's this perception that people, and it's probably reality, that people that are extremely well connected and very high up can avoid prosecution, where people lower down on the ladder who do something even remotely like this are sent away to prison forever. So the question is, how will the Obama administration handle this?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think her fate is in the hands of the political system, not the legal system, because Petraeus, he was charged with 3 serious crimes, and yet he got a misdemeanor. He confessed to a misdemeanor and didn't go to prison, paid a fine, and a little bit probation. So, but I think it will be, a political thing. I think if Obama wants to go after her, he'll be able to behind the scenes. I don't think any of this stuff happens by accident. And if not, they're going to probably close this down pretty soon, or go through with it, or dismiss it, or have an agreement. They did it with Petraeus, but I think you're suggesting that it might not be so easy to have an agreement. Petraeus was a big name, but not quite as big as Hillary. So if they give her an excuse, but even a slap on the wrist could be very damaging to her. I think that politically would be just as damaging, and it might even be more, because it would look like special treatment.
Exactly as you were saying, Petraeus' misdemeanor, in essence, destroyed his political career. Remember, they were talking about him for president and all these things. That, along with the affair, but certainly this misdemeanor destroyed his political career. So the question is, how can Hillary get away with nothing, not even a slap on the wrist, when it's obvious that something did happen that was against the law? And what does she do? What happens to her politically if she has a misdemeanor? Mm-hmm. But, we had a fit of cynicism before we started the show, and you evilly pointed out that, when it comes to the Democrats, they will overlook this. This is a Republican witch hunt, on Hillary. And the same thing the Republicans did with Petraeus. Oh, the liberals are just after him because he's a great warrior. So we have another political problem, which is this party politics in America.
Well, I think this stuff is real serious. But when I look at the big picture, it's minor compared to war crimes. Yeah. Why do we permit our government to lie to us, lie us into war, and then, the people who continue to commit war crimes, they're just taking orders. Well, if the war is illegal, immoral, and innocent people are being killed, and we invade countries and a lot of innocent people die, that's very, very serious. But that is not the issue here. But I think George W. Bush can't go around the world because some countries would like to arrest him for war crimes. So people have thought along this way. So that to me is the big issue. But still, working this situation out for political reasons, I think, is going to be very important. I think it's interesting. You might have an opinion by Loretta Lynch, who's the Attorney General. I wonder if she feels like she's in the middle of it, because I would guess that she would want to do everything she could to help Hillary. And if Obama didn't want to help Hillary, I wonder how those differences, the politics of it gets a little bit more confusing.
You wonder what's being said or what the text messages are. It's interesting you point out the war criminals, though, because I think a better case we made, and we'd probably both be more satisfied that both Hillary and Petraeus should have been tried for war crimes, not for these crimes, because Hillary is every bit as guilty as Petraeus for war crimes. She's the one, she knew that she was advised that the Libya bombing and attack would be a bad move. Bob Gates wrote in his memoirs that he tried to convince Obama that this is a terrible thing. He said it was 51-49 among the White House about the staff, and Hillary jumping in on the side of bombing tipped the scales in favor of bombing. We see how that worked out. So she's got to bear some responsibility for the disaster that's Libya, just like Petraeus has to bear responsibility for the disaster that's Iraq.
One of the technical arguments that have come up is whether this material is classified and what the stamp was, and Hillary's side is arguing, well, it wasn't stamped top secret, but then it it got stamped top secret later on, and that's an inviting excuse, for some people who are sympathetic and say, hey, well, maybe that's true, that's the same. But it's been pointed out by some real experts that show that once you're in the State Department, everything is considered secret just because it hasn't had some stamp. The email server shouldn't have been open, but the material, I don't think anybody can argue, well, this was within the law, and it was okay because there wasn't a proper stamp. I think it's very clear that she was doing something that she shouldn't have been doing.
Well, I spent a short period of time as a very low-level person in the State Department intelligence,
Uh-oh.
and I knew that every single thing is automatically classified at least at the confidential level, and I was a nobody. So someone like Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State, there's no way that she would not have known that the presumption is every single thing, even a memo to the coffee shop would presumably classified.
Yes. And Trump comes into this. He gets to voice his opinion, but his assessment, which is probably going to be pretty important, his immediate reaction was, well, what Hillary did was 100 times worse than what Petraeus did, and he's sort of in the camp for political reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I think Trump's a little bit political, and he's able to demagogue his way through this. But he knows that the conservative Republicans still love Petraeus. He's not been held up to any higher standard, and he gets away with this. But so Trump highly defended Petraeus. But of course, he's thinking that he might be running against Hillary. But this all fits into a not a firm prediction, but a thesis that I have followed, that even, for months, the contrarian viewpoint, when everybody, the bull market is here forever. It's a new economy. Well, the bull market on politics for Hillary and Trump, it's all sealed. Everybody knows what's going to happen. And I say, well, I wouldn't be shocked. And I've mentioned this before. I wouldn't be shocked that one or both of them will not make it. And I still think, of course, it's not much of an assumption now. She's getting closer to a problem, but it's a problem for the establishment, which we should cheer. Because the Democratic establishment has Hillary to deal with. The Republican establishment has Trump to deal with. And some people say, oh, this is terrible. We're going to get gridlock in Washington. Thank you. Yeah. Because maybe this march toward bigger government and more spending, in spite of what the politicians say. But why I'm a little bit discouraged about all this grandstanding is we don't even have a candidate that's pretending they're going to cut anything. There's no saying, well, we're going to cut this, and maybe somebody will say we'll cut taxes, but what does that mean when it's just in a political campaign? And nobody's been really pushing that real hard. The one that has gotten the most attention is the one who wants to raise taxes to pay for all the socialist programs that we have.
Stuff, yeah. No, the issues are not being debated this year, and I think it's a function of the blind anger that can be channeled in a direction that is very negative to our liberties.
Well, I think it's a very important issue that's going on today, and what happens since immunity has been given. The timing, I think, is unpredictable. I think sometimes they think, well, this will take a week or 2 or 3. Those predictions are generally wrong. It takes a lot longer. This is going to linger. Of course, I don't think it helps Hillary if it just lingers on. And if there's no clear-cut way for her to be exonerated clean, I would have to say that she's in big trouble, and that politically the Democrats have every bit as much of a problem dealing with finding their candidate as the Republicans seem to be on agreeing on their candidate. So I am sure that we will continue to hear about this case, about the emails, and we will continue to hear about the presidential campaign, and you'll continue to hear from us from the Liberty Report and try to keep you up to date on all the issues of the day. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.
Ron Paul Liberty Report on YouTube, RonPaulLibertyReport.com. Check them out, subscribe. Great weekly Those are actually live at 12 p.m. Eastern every weekday. Subscribe on YouTube and check them out on RonPaulLibertyReport.com. Now, with this email thing, we have people coming out talking about, oh, she's done, she's going to get, indicted. It's starting to look that way. When we have, let me try to find this article here, if I can. I'm not seeing it right this second. But we have one of the former aides that, or he was a person that set up the servers. That's why I was trying to find the article. But he's basically been granted immunity to turn over state's evidence. And that's not something that usually happens at the, a whim. It's something that's pretty thought out to give immunity for state's evidence. When he was formerly pleading the fifth, and then you have another article here that spokeswoman, this out of the weeklystandard.com, Clinton camp bizarrely claims FBI not investigating server. Spokeswoman for the Hillary Clinton campaign seemed to make a bizarre claim on MSNBC. The FBI is not look at Hillary Clinton's server. Karen Finney claimed they are looking at the emails themselves. The MSNBC host disputed Finley's characterization. Now, again, I think that where this goes, whether they actually go after her or they don't, will actually tell you a lot about where we are as a country. That she's not already been, she's still on the campaign trail. For her to still be able to be on the campaign trail should already be an indicator of where we are as a country right now. The longer this goes on and whether they actually go after her or not, I think will be your final clue. This election season, I think, is really showing you where we are. Okay, give me a second here. I had a clip here with Andrew Napolitano. Let me try to bring it up here. This was on Morning with Marie on Fox, Andrew Napolitano, about the Hillary Clinton aide getting immunity. So here we go.
Granting immunity to Brian Pagliano. He's the Clinton staffer who installed the private email server in her upstate New York home. Want to bring in Fox News senior judiciary analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, good to see you.
Oh, good morning.
So I was reading through your notes, and one thing really struck me. If they were not serious, perhaps, about the next level of this investigation, why would they grant Pagliano immunity?
They wouldn't. The fact
significance
that he has immunity means the following. Only a federal judge can grant immunity. A federal judge will only grant immunity to a witness whose testimony the government needs to testify before some proceeding. The proceeding is a grand jury, so we know already the FBI is interacting with the Justice Department. The FBI has already made some recommendations to the Justice Department. The Justice Department has accepted those recommendations seriously, has convened a grand jury, and has begun or will soon begin to present evidence to the grand jury. And they need Mr. Pagliano's testimony immunized, which means he no longer has the privilege against self-incrimination because they can't use against him whatever he says. It also means, this is profound, they intend to indict someone. It's not Brian Pagliano. He can only be indicted if he commits perjury, if he lies under oath. But they intend to indict someone in this chain north of him.
Why do you get that from this?
Because that's a great question. The procedure to obtain immunity is so time-consuming and involves such resources, they would not do it just for the heck of it. Mm-hmm. They would not do it to satisfy newspaper editorialists or political commentators. They would only do it if they are seriously presenting evidence before a grand jury and they need the live testimony of this witness.
Yeah. So because he before pleaded the fifth and continued to plead the fifth, they went back and they were able to find something that they needed him to talk about. So they went through the steps to get the judge to grant immunity. Is that essentially what happened?
Yes, Kevin, that's exactly the way it happened, but it's even more interesting than that. His lawyers sat down with Justice Department lawyers, and they did a procedure. It's a wacky name. You'll like the name of this procedure. It's called Queen for a Day. It basically means the witness tells Justice Department lawyers what he would say to a grand jury. And whatever he says, they can never use against him. They can only use against somebody else. After that procedure, they decided, yes, we need him to say this to a grand jury, but the only way he'll say it to a grand jury is if we promise not to prosecute him, hence the immunity.
Can we talk about the timing of all of this?
Yes.
First of all, are you surprised it's going as fast as it is?
I am, knowing the FBI, I am not surprised, but I will tell you this. The FBI is many steps ahead of where we all thought they were.
Correct.
The concept of an FBI recommendation is not one piece of paper with one recommendation.
Right.
It's a series of interactions and revelations between the Justice Department and the FBI, so that the two of them, DOJ, FBI works for the DOJ, will come to a common consensus.
So Loretta Lynch made it very clear in that interview with Brett Baer that there's no deadline for this investigation and that this will be handled like any other review. Let me take it to politics for a second. We are obviously in an election year. Do you think that there is going to be any major outcome prior to November?
I think there will surely be indictments prior to November. I don't know if Mrs. Clinton herself is going to be indicted, but Brian Pagliano is at the bottom of the totem pole. Mrs. Clinton is at the top. In between are Patrick Kennedy, that's not the late senator's son, that's another person with that same name, Philippe Reines.
That was one of her spokespeople.
Correct. Cheryl Mills, Huma Abedin, and others. Now, the typical federal procedure is to start at the bottom, either indict the person and they spill the beans, or get immunity for the person and they spill the beans, and work your way up.
But they wouldn't convene a grand jury if they didn't feel they had enough serious information that there might be indictments.
I would amend the statement slightly, Georgette. They would not convene a grand jury with an immunized witness unless they intended to indict someone. The very fact that they persuaded a federal judge to give Mr. Pagliano immunity means for sure they intend to indict someone, not Mr. Pagliano.
One thing he's going to say is that he was paid $5,000 in early 2009 by Hillary Clinton to divert his emails, her emails from the State Department into her private server.
Okay. While all this is going on, the State Department is being sued by Judicial Watch, and the judge in that lawsuit late last week said to the Judicial Watch lawyers, you can take the deposition of all of Mrs. Clinton's aides. I'm not going to let you take her deposition yet. Here's what I want you to find out for me. Was there a conspiracy in the office of the Secretary of State of the United States to violate federal law? And what federal laws would that be? Freedom of Information Act and espionage laws, the obligation to keep secret state secrets.
Yeah. But what happens if she gets indicted after she wins the
nomination?
Yeah,
that's a great question.
That'll be up to Democratic Party rules. I would think that would be catastrophic to the Democrats. In my column today at foxnews.com and the Washington Times, I say, don't the Democrats want to know before they complete their nomination process if Mrs. Clinton is likely to be a criminal defendant?
But couldn't this just take too long? Because think about it. You talked about how he was at the bottom of the totem pole. They're going to have to get through everyone else to get all the way up to Hillary. That's going to take way too long. She's going to make it through this nomination process before they can even recommend an indictment.
but that's the point I'm making. Then what happens?
Kevin, as I was walking in here, just glancing at my iPhone, Fox News reported that a federal law enforcement official, name unrevealed, expects this to be wrapped up by May.
Wow.
It's 2 months before the Democratic National, or 3 months before the Democratic National Convention.
So is it fair to say that this has now taken a major turn with this aide being granted immunity?
Absolutely. It's also fair to say that a grand jury is or will soon be hearing evidence in the case, and the government plans to indict someone.
The irony of this is that if, in fact, she gets indicted, it'll be the Democratic convention that will have to take it to the floor and pick.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there. Now, she's getting ready to talk about, they'll have to take it to the floor, Well, they're basically, in a way, it would have to be something where they either get Biden in or they let it go to Sanders. It's hard to tell what they would do, but it's definitely looking more and more of a mess for Hillary, and unlikely of her nomination now that this news has come out and the immunity has been given. Now, let me see if I have this up here right now. Let me see if I can pull it up then. Okay. Not seen it quite yet. One problem with Drudge, you have articles that disappear depending on when that gets updated. Okay. Well, the end result of this is we are actually looking at the possibility that Clinton or someone extremely close to Clinton could be indicted, that it's one of those things that it's going to turn around and give Sanders a boost, which will give him the possibility of becoming the Democratic nominee. Now, I really think that they will try to use Biden and throw Biden in there at the last moment. Now, kind of switching over the Republican Party, things that Roger Stone, which I'm not all knowing on, Roger Stone and his past and who he is, but being close to the inside, he revealed things on InfoWars and Alex Jones' show, talking about the establishment and their war on Trump. Now, again, I'm not a big supporter of Trump at all. I was a very, very, very loosely supporter of Rand Paul, meaning I really still did not have any motivation to vote for a Republican or Democrat. But if someone was going to vote for one of the candidates that was running for the Republican nomination, I said that Rand Paul would be the only one up there. More and more came out about Ted Cruz. Of course, the other ones, no way. Rand Paul dropped out. Now, I will say that Trump is shaking the Republican establishment. They got them shaking, or he's got them shaking. But that doesn't mean that he's not establishment in his own right. Again, he said he's bought off politicians. That is part of the establishment. Definitely on the Republican side. The Republican side is heavily into big business. Democrats are more into ways to basically become government partners with big business, I would say, would be the easiest way to explain it. Again, more towards the socialist, kind of more incorporate the corporations into the government by regulating, while it seems that the Republicans tend to regulate small business out of the picture to benefit big business. But either way, small business always gets the losing end of that one. I don't think Donald Trump's different in that sense. But he is shaking the Republican establishment. And Roger Stone, again, has come out and said that they were going to try to use Rubio. Again, the establishment also doesn't like Ted Cruz because he's closer to the nationalist sovereignty and, Constitution side, even though he is establishment, again, in a way. They like to keep those ones more out of the bigger picture. They allow them to fight certain fights to benefit them without them really knowing. And I think Ted Cruz has been used as a puppet for a long time. And even, his wife being involved with who she is business-wise, it's another, puppet string on him. So I never trusted him to not be used at all. It's either that or he's a very good wolf in sheep's clothing, like I've said in the past. With what Roger Stone said, he said that they would use Rubio to try to get the nomination. If they did not think that Rubio is going to work out, that Romney would come into the picture. And sure enough, all of his predictions and, well, his whistleblowing about it came out to seem to be true. And now we also have, Romney talking about, entering the race. I did see one article about something about Romney's Facebook page. I should try to go there real quick. I think they said it was his Facebook page. But I'm not seeing it on his Facebook page. But many people think that he will enter the race at the last moment during the convention, try to do a broker convention, and get the nomination away from Trump. And he's all of a sudden come out swinging, and it looks like they're kind of letting go of looking at Romney. And many are claiming they're also temporarily using Kasich to hold the spot open for Romney. Now, I don't know what's going to come out of this, but we're going to have issues coming out of this. I do want to kind of move along here. Give me a second. This one, kind of over the brokered convention from We Are Change, and a third-party presidential candidate speaks out against Trump.
This is Gradowski of We Are Change.org, and I'm joined by the one and only Gary Johnson, Libertarian presidential candidate and also former governor of New Mexico. An awesome, incredible human being, and I definitely want to talk to you because there's a lot of amazing updates when it comes to the Libertarian Party and the voting and the debates and everything that has been happening. Can you give us an update? What's been happening with the Libertarian Party, the third party that the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about?
Well, most importantly is the Libertarian nominee will be on the ballot in all 50 states. So when you talk about third party, you're talking about the Libertarian Party. I hope to be that nominee, but that's something that really is getting overlooked by everybody. Libertarian Party on the ballot in all 50 states. You want a third party candidate? I might be it.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of primaries happening now. Can you give us the latest update on just the status that you're in, the other candidates that are, and the whole process that's going to take to, figure out who the Libertarian candidate is?
Well, so Libertarians are engaged in many state conventions. There are going to be several debates, probably a dozen debates. And at the end of all that, it will be delegates that will go to Orlando, Florida over Memorial Day and vote for the nominee.
I wanted to ask your kind of opinion on the political restructuring that's happening right now, because we're seeing a lot of talk here, especially at CPAC, about probably a brokered convention. We're seeing a lot of neoconservatives also call for a third party to go against Trump. How do you see the political landscape changing? Because this seems like a very odd year, unlike all the other presidential elections before.
Well, what we've got in American politics is you've got the Republican nominee that goes out and tries to garner the support of 30% of the far right. You have the Democrat nominee that goes out and tries to garner the support of 30% of the far left. When 50% of Americans now say that they're independent, what you end up with the two major parties is you end up with a solid 30% representation of the American public. So there is an absolute disgust with politics as usual, and if there has ever been an opportunity for libertarians, it's now.
I was wondering, also with the political landscape changing, obviously Donald Trump is trending. Obviously everyone's talking about Donald Trump. I wanted to know, what would you do different when it comes to his foreign policy? Because if you look at his foreign policy, he wants to kind of cut military spending. He doesn't want to intervene inside of Syria. He wants to release the 28 pages with the 9/11 report. Do any of his positions, would you apply any of his positions when it comes to his foreign policy?
Well, I do believe that our military interventions, although not the cause of Islamic terrorism, have not made the situation better. So we can contain what's happening over in the Middle East. Islamic terrorism is very real, but we address it with our brains. We cut off the funding. We recognize the homegrown threat that exists, and we address that, not with boots on the ground, not dropping bombs. I disagree with his statement completely about killing the families of Islamic terrorists. I think that that's crazy.
Where do you stand on his issues of weakening the First Amendment, expanding libel laws, also saying he would expand the NSA?
I disagree with all of those, just categorically disagree with that. Civil liberties are really important, and I think Donald Trump presidency will erode civil liberties.
Thank you so much, Gary, about everything, and the link to your website will be in the description below. Thank you so much for being on the show.
We Are Change on YouTube, wearechange.org. And again, that was Gary Johnson, possible Libertarian nominee. And he's ran as the Libertarian nominee before last election cycle. Now, you know, he talks about, you know, the non-interventionist, you know, things we were warned about by our founding fathers, about entangling alliances where we have all these allies and we get dragged into these wars, whether we should be a part of them or not. You know, we got our own interests going on. Then we also get involved in the UN alliances, and we get two allies shooting at each other. Now what? We're running into that already. We've been running into that. These are things that really bother me because they aren't being taught. You know, we are taught, we're teaching the kids in public school anymore, that, you know, we should be involved and be, you know, the moral, you know, leaders. And at the same time, you also have problems with how they're teaching how they should be involved in everybody else's life here, domestically. And it's this allegiance to a order, a utopian order that they are being brainwashed to believe in. And then, let me find this article here. It was about students and a pledge to here it is. Public school students taught to pledge allegiance to international flag. And this was on Hannity.com, but I found on Drudge Report. Outrageous. Public school students taught to pledge allegiance to an international flag, the Sean Hannity Show. It is widely accepted that American public schools are controlled by liberals. It seems like every day we see new examples of American school children being indoctrinated with left-wing ideas. The latest example was brought to our attention by a concerned parent. Kindergarten students from PS 75, a public school in New York City, recently took part in a class project in which the children were made to create an American flag with the flags of 22 other nations superimposed over the stripes. Below the flag reads the words, "We pledge allegiance to an international flag." The flag is being auctioned off as a way to raise funds for the Parent-Teacher Association. According to the description offered on the auction site, the students made a beautiful painted stretch canvas American flag and then applied flags from all the Spanish-speaking countries onto the stripes of the American flag. All the children choose a flag to color using colored pencils, and they were glued onto the larger American flag. The stars are cut canvas, which are painted and decorated with real Swarovski crystals, gold and crystal colored. The fun quote on the bottom is about unity and creating an environment in which everyone is welcome. We pledge allegiance to an international flag. Our dual language classroom strives to be a place that everyone feels welcome. Although the description claims that the flags are limited to Spanish-speaking countries, the Russian flag is amongst those that are included. This is the type of globalist indoctrination we have to come to expect from public school system, but telling impressionable young American children that their loyalty should lie with some nebulous idea of a global community rather than their own nation is a new low. And it says update the auction site on which the flag was featured has taken down all images of the item as well as any description. Now, it seems a mix between the global agenda and the short-term global agenda of getting a American Union created. And if we look at the immigration problem, not only here but in Europe, what we are seeing is a breaking down of borders. But it's not a breaking down of borders like maybe, myself as a libertarian would like. Myself as a libertarian says that, if, I live in Texas on a border town and there's a guy right over there on the other side of the border that wants to buy a jacket off of me, what the hell? We free trade, free movement. But what we have is a breaking down of borders for a larger border to engulf more area, to have a more centralized control. Wrong type of, breaking down of borders. We just need the breaking down of borders where it don't matter, Canadian border. I want to trade with the guy over there on the other side of the border that wants to buy something. We could do that. You don't have rulers that are siphoning off of your wealth where, hey, I'll trade you this or that, no tax. We're just bartering You know, it's getting to a point where we're actually seeing the opposite, where, you know, our national borders are being broken down to create a more territorial border for the power to be more centralized. And we already seen that with the EU, and we see what happens with the EU. Many people have been like, you know, it's the end of the EU, end of the EU. And it should be. You know, we should have already seen Greece exiting. We should have seen, you know, Germany pulling out, because it's a lot of their money going elsewhere. A lot of countries, Britain should have already exited. It's not happening. Why? Because the breakdown of these countries is part of the plan. They have to gain control. And something that they've done over in Europe already. They've gotten rid of large currency. Then it's hard to hold on to large amounts of your money, because would you like that $30,000 in ones or quarters, or, you know, tens or fives? You know, I would like that in $100 bills, please. Oh, we don't have those no more. Well, how about $50? No, we don't have those no more either. 20? Yeah, we got 20s, but they're gonna phase those out here in about 8 months, so you'll have to eventually trade those in. What's also happened over in Europe is, as a result, most people have their money sitting in banks. And you wake up the next day and your money is a little less. They went in there and go, instead of going to the government and saying, give me the money, the government basically tells them, you have permission to take a percentage of your customers' cash. That's one reason why I tell people, at least look at Bitcoin as a small option. That's why central bankers and planners around the world don't quite like Bitcoin. Even though there's ways sometimes to track, movement of money, there are some people that are able to stay pretty far off the radar with Bitcoin. Now, I'm also someone that likes gold and silver. Definitely with them looking to get rid of the hundreds and the 50s and negative interest rates. These are all signals that you need to be putting your eggs in multiple baskets here, because if you got all your money sitting in a bank account, you're not looking good. Why they're kind of paying attention to Trump and all this election stuff. We're also failing to see, what our economy is doing, where they're kind of going on like, hey, nothing's wrong, everything's cheery, and we have economists out there trying to yell over the Trump and, Hillary and Bernie, and trying to yell through all that, going, there's problems here. the stock market's all over the chart because it doesn't know what to do. If you get them to do negative interest rates, when you get them to pass something that allows them to skim off the top, this might not happen in, the next year. This might take 3, 4, 5 years to do, but it will happen if they go down this path. Again, that's why the Fed shouldn't be messing with interest rates. But, I urge people all the time, you should have some gold, some silver. It's one thing that will protect, well, definitely if you have a lot of money that you don't want to have all of it in a bank account, if you're able to put some of it in gold and put away for safekeeping, it's not a, end all situation, but it's one of those things that it does, hedge against inflation and the theft of your money. So, go check it out. If you go to antityrannynews.com/metal, go and check Amagi Metals out. My preferred source, great deals. And it's one of those things that, again, put your eggs in multiple baskets. But I do believe one of those baskets should be in precious metals. And Amagi gives great customer service. And they tend to have a lot of freedom-oriented coins, too, for those that want to spend a little bit more to get something a little special. Definitely if you want to do it for a gift. But again, antityrannynews.com/metal, and that'll take you to Amagi Metal at the same time. It helps us out here to bring you this broadcast and cover operating costs. So go check them out. And, another thing I always tell people is prepping. Go to ucy.tv. You scroll down towards the bottom. You'll see the Amazon button. Shop through that button. Shop Amazon through ucy.tv. And we'll get a little bit of a kickback to cover operating costs on the networks. And great collection of prepping gear and all that. Great prices, great shipping rates from Amazon. Go check them out, ucy.tv. Again, scroll down towards the bottom, click the Amazon button. And, the listeners here and the host here are what make this possible, that you're able to get this information. And it's also, our freedom of speech, our freedom of press. And that's not something that's just in the Constitution, Bill of Rights. That's something that it's our right to freely exchange information. We have ears, we have mouths, we have brains. We can communicate with each other and spread ideas, and we can't cave in to people that want to play off your emotions, tell you that we should silence people that have opposite opinions or criticize you. I know there's people out there that criticize my libertarian beliefs or even my constitutional leaning. I'm willing to, take those steps to go towards, a more constitutional limited government. But again, I've always said that that's not an end all for me. I am a libertarian. I do believe on progressing past that. I'm a progressive in the idea of freedom and liberty, not a progressive in the idea of growing government. again, most terms have been hijacked. Liberal used to mean, the party of liberty. But that was classical liberal. Modern day liberal, not so much. Okay. Now, what happens to a country that goes real far socialist? I got one here from Natural News, naturalnews.com. Venezuela collapses into food police state. Biometric scanning into government database now required to purchase food. Yeah, you heard that. It was nicknamed the Fingerprints for Food program, but it represented a dire new twist in the ongoing struggle for the socialist Venezuelan government to provide basic nourishment and products for its citizens. As reported by the Miami Herald in May 2014, President Nicolas Maduro ordered the implementation of biometrics to allow the government to track what customers of state-owned grocery stores were purchasing, and perhaps, as importantly, how much. Maduro, the paper reported, said that the measure was necessary to prevent hoarding and to help keep price-controlled food from being resold at a profit. Even then, food was increasingly in short supply, and that was before global oil prices collapsed due to a glut. Venezuela receives 95% of its revenues from oil. Hey, they put all their eggs in one basket, or 95% of them. Not a good idea. In order to convince hungry Venezuelans to voluntarily register for the program, Food Minister Felix Osorio promised that anyone who signed up and give the government their fingerprints would be eligible for discounts and prizes. Military necessary to guard stores. The scheme was not made mandatory when it was first implemented, but critics warned that it would become just another way for the state to keep tabs on its people and could even serve as a precursor to rationing. The Herald reported further. The initiative, called the Superior System for Secure Supplies, comes amid a raft of economic measures rolled out amid anti-government protests that have dragged on for almost 2 months, leaving at least 39 dead on both sides of the political divide. Quote, this is a government that attacks the people not only with weapons but with the worst tax, inflation, unquote. Luis Florido, a national officer of the Voluntad Popular Opposition Party, told the Herald at the time, quote, the government is creating economic chaos for the people of Venezuela, unquote. In January 2015, Natural News reported that the food shortages have become so commonplace in Venezuela that consumers were forced to wait for hours in food lines, with many opting to sleep in line so as not to lose their place. In addition, Maduro, by then, was also forced to deploy the Venezuelan army to keep peace and ensure social stability at state-run stores. You can read the rest of that article there at naturalnews.com. It's titled Venezuela Collapses into Food Police State. Now, we're not there yet. We're not close. But again, if they make a North American or just a American Union. It will be, because what do we see that happen in Europe? What happens is they try to normalize all the countries to each other. What does that really mean? Socialism. It means absolute socialism. Don't let, their fancy terms and explanations divert from by dropping the national borders and creating these unions. They're doing, a global socialist movement. And that means taking the money from the wealthy countries and diverting a lot of it to the poor countries. You worry about the illegal aliens coming across the border, these illegal immigrants. Oh no. The only thing that a border being built is going to do is allow the government to control the flow of people. And you think it might benefit you, and it's not in the end. They already run border checkpoints 100 miles into the country. Why? And, if that's the so-called buffer zone, then why aren't we catching them? It's all a fallacy, and they hope that your cognitive dissonance is enough that they can create these fallacies, and hope that you'll believe in it, and you'll go for it, and it will create this utopia, and believe in the utopia. Just believe in yourself, because that is what they want to stop. Now, what I've almost seen is here domestically, they are looking at the population as more and more unneeded. And this is the elites on both sides. They all have somewhat of their own agenda and their own path that they want to take. But their end games are all the same. And we are now becoming more and more of an obstacle. Why? Because, technology has been taking our place. And there's a big picture around this, which I do have one here from Christopher Green. I want to play the majority of this, not all of it, but the majority of it I'm going to play. Okay, give me a second here. And he's talking about a robot warfare, the genocide of jobs. And what we are seeing is a lot of these elite people. And, nowadays we have, the Big Bang, and being a geek is cool. But a lot of the geeks that have created this, Silicon Valley and internet and technical and, that whole industry, the founders of Google, Apple, that's when geek wasn't cool. And almost like a TV sitcom back in the day, the geek makes the robot to be his friend, to do be his company. We've had movies about, the AI, the guy falling in love with his AI. And not all these people have some bad intention. Some of these people are just wanting to make people's lives better and easier. But there's others out there that see benefits in, I don't need all these people anymore. Now you become an obstacle, and definitely to the elite that before needed you. Therefore, they used you. Now they can get robots to do it. And, artificial intelligence is one of the things that is getting extremely big. But let's go ahead and get into this clip here. Robot Warfare, the Genocide of Jobs from AMTV with Christopher Green.
Visit our sponsor, Point Zero Energy, right now. Solar backup you can count on. Check out their off-grid portable solar generators and complete do-it-yourself solar panel kits. The HomeGrid 5000 HD provides heavy-duty, portable power to back up your entire home in the event of an emergency or blackout. But it plays perfectly into this video. My mic, when I turn it to off, actually records sound, but when I turn it on, it doesn't record my voice. Probably time to get a new mic, but it plays perfectly into this video. Even a couple of the lights are making strange sounds this morning because robots are taking over the world. This is robotic warfare, robot genocide. I was reading a really interesting article, courtesy of the New York Times, I believe it was, last night. They've actually made some crazy updates to their site. I know it's the mainstream media bullshit, but you still consume a lot of this stuff, and then I package it for you here on AMTV, but they've made quite a few, I think, dramatic, good improvements to the site layout. They've got kind of like this blue hue now as you're reading the text. It looks really good. It was like really easy on the eyes late last night when I was reading this. But an article about Wall Street and how the algorithms are taking over. Now, of course, we've been talking about this for years. I have a background in finance. I have a background working for a major Wall Street broker. That's the world that I came from. So it's really interesting because I talked about these topics years ago with friends and family before I ever got into what this media revolution has become and what alternative media has become, AMTV, which you're tuning in to today. But it was talking about this dude, we'll just call him a douchebag, that created some kind of software that basically is an algorithm that trades on Wall Street, and now he's like a client to Goldman Sachs. And his software is revolutionizing Wall Street. That it's actually resulting in Goldman Sachs employees, not that I feel sorry for them at all. I mean, they're pretty much responsible, along with the other too big to fail big banks, for causing the worst financial crisis in the history of man as we continue to bail these companies out. And Warren Buffett, licks his big fat ice cream while receiving an award from Barack Obama. But this new technology that this douchebag created, that makes some millions and millions of dollars a year, is destroying all these jobs. It's even affecting the upper echelon of employees at Goldman friggin' Sachs. They're losing their jobs. The article goes on to say that basically these algorithms now, not just this software, it had a funny name. It was like Kinsho or Kinshi or Kinsho. I'm probably screwing it up. It really doesn't matter. But this douchebag that created this douchebag software, kind of like Google is today, and the whole social media revolution is today, also destroying jobs, is, technology advancement. Not that there's not pros to all this. There's not really cool things coming from it, but it's also created warfare against the general population. Even Goldman Sachs is being affected. They estimated in the article, and I actually agree with it, from the low end, 20% of all Wall Street jobs will be erased in the next few years, up to 50% of all Wall Street jobs. This was coming from a very high-level executive who just stepped down from another major Wall Street bank. I can't think of his name at the time. Up to 50% of the financial jobs on Wall Street totally eradicated. Now, I know none of us feel sorry for Wall Street. I don't feel sorry for Wall Street at all. But this has profound implications, not just for Wall Street and not just for the elitists, which is amazing and very telling in and of itself. These elitists would lose their jobs at places like Goldman Sachs, but profound implications for all the rest of us in a variety of jobs and industries. And this is something I could see coming like a giant freaking freight train over 5 years ago. And I remember talking about this with friends and family. I had an idea of a documentary at the time, which sounded really outlandish at the time because I was in finance. I didn't do any of this, but, 5 years ahead, here I am on, TV, on AM TV, speaking to you guys. But how this would profoundly, technology would profoundly, the algorithm that makes up Google and Twitter and these digital ghettos, as Matt Drudge has coined them, that we've all become a part of now, is not only merging with mainstream society, it already has merged, but it's completely disrupting everything. Every industry, traditional employment, and it's creating, guess what? Massive, massive, massive unemployment. I'm trying to think what teed me off yesterday on this. I was actually watching a video that I found on a link on Drudge of a guy who broke down in tears because he lost his IT job at Disney and had to train his foreign replacement, who was paid, probably a quarter of what his previous or, his usual salary was.
In the direction of my career, because January 31st, 2015 was my last day in the technology field. That day, 20 years of hard work, a bachelor's degree in information technology, and an IT job for Disney were all over when my team, along with hundreds of others, were displaced by a less skilled foreign workforce imported into our country using the H-1B.
And I felt really sorry for the guy. He was breaking down in tears. He can't feed his family, and I'm very sympathetic to that. And, it almost made me want to cry watching him go through the speech in this, courtroom type setting. And it was really gut-wrenching. It's not that I don't feel for him, but it just goes to show you, though, that all of this is profoundly changing, right? Technology is totally disrupting how society used to work. Now, let me kind of give a couple more examples of this. All the traditional jobs, and none of this is meant to offend any of you that do these types of jobs. All the traditional type jobs that many of you do today, and I say this from a very humble position. Again, I'm not knocking anyone out there that's in any of these fields, but are honestly worthless now in today's new the algorithm, this Google society that makes up software on Wall Street, et cetera, and the software that encompasses all of us on our iPhones, et cetera, and all these gadgets is totally destroying these traditional jobs and eradicating them, honestly, from the system. So this goes for all real estate agents. It goes for all attorneys. It goes for all insurance agents. It goes for mortgage brokers. It goes for financial advisors. All those, a lot of them, service-oriented jobs, completely and utterly worthless. You're just a middleman, honestly. We don't need you. Because you have companies out there, and the technology backs this up, that basically eliminates your job, and your category completely, where you now just go straight to the insurance contract, or straight to the mortgage, or you have an algorithm, as Charles Schwab is already doing.
Hello. I am here to offer sophisticated investing strategies. My technology can help you choose the right portfolio, monitor it, and automatically rebalance it, all without charging advisory fees, account service fees, or commissions. That may be hard to compute, but I'm a computer, so trust me.
Build your asset allocation, which financial advisors used to do. They're just middlemen. They have no real use in society anymore. This also goes for a lot of general labor jobs. In fact, labor to be, in my opinion, eradicated probably in the next 10 to 15 years. All labor-intensive jobs. And construction, manufacturing, it could even be at your office, sorting mail and lifting boxes. No longer needed. Because you have companies like Google creating robots, humanoid robots that literally walk, and I don't know if they talk yet, but they probably will soon, all based on the algorithm and the AI that makes up their growing, accelerating intelligence that makes up the singularity that are taking those jobs. Self-driving cars, if you're a bus driver or a truck driver, or you drive for a living, if you fly planes for a living, if you do any of these jobs, you're honestly not needed. I mean, even planes today fly themselves. Do we really need pilots? They're really just there as a backup system to the AI. This goes for a host of fields, and it doesn't mean that people like me won't be affected either. You know, I look at my own profession, which very much is an art form in a lot of ways in what I do, but the AI, arguably, through its growing intelligence, the smarter it becomes and it starts thinking for itself, could be a better entertainer than I, could paint a picture better than Picasso, could do all these things in a variety of fields. It doesn't have to just be in the traditional model. It doesn't have to just target the service industry, for example, or advertising or traditional media, how we've seen that model decimated. It's the reason why you're tuning into channels like AM TV, why you're tuning into the alternative media. The whole field has been eradicated. One of the reasons I actually positioned myself 5 years ago in technology, because I could see this freight train coming. And it was also where my real heart was, my gut, and my passion. Obviously, if I didn't have that, I couldn't do anything that I do. So it kind of comes from a place, today's video kind of comes from a place where I'm like, almost like your father, a little bit telling you what's coming. If you're in any of these career choices, your job is worthless. I hate to say that, but it really, truly is. The technology is taking over, the algorithms are taking over, and you are just a middleman. So I think all of us, including myself, I'm a part of this general population here, folks, and I say this humbly, have to think about how to position ourselves going forward the next 5 to 10 years. As people like Ray Kurzweil warn us, these high-level executives at Google, where we're reaching a singularity, a book that he wrote that I highly recommend that you read, we're approaching this time where the AI will exceed all of human intelligence in aggregate in the next 10 freaking years. The AI. I mean, again, AI might be the new broadcasters in the not-too-distant future. I might be out of a job, too. The AI might do a better job than me. They might paint a more beautiful painting than Picasso or write more beautiful music than Beethoven. Okay, this is how relevant, shocking this all is. So let's think about this from an elitist perspective for a minute. Let's think about it from the eye of the New World Order beholder, so to speak. Those that own the technology, because there's a new elitist tech class, a technocratic elite. The people that make up Sergey Brin and Larry Page of Google and Jeff Bezos of Amazon, one of my favorites, Jeff Bezos, and all these other guys, you know, the Tesla founder, etc. All of these people sit at the top that own these algorithms, and everybody else is now at the bottom. So what we have is this wealth gap, this disparity. A lot of politicians are talking about this right now, but it's only increased at a higher rate with greater rapidity over the last couple of years. It's why there's been a socialization of America. It's been one of the strategies. We have this occurring. We've got the tech elite here, the type of people that I just mentioned, and everybody else. So what are they going to do? Because these people are becoming enriched. They're making all the money. They're aggregating all the information. Companies like Google placing all of us in the digital ghetto to pick up the crumbs like the groundlings and peasants that we truly are, because we still have modern slavery today in our world. Nothing's changed in thousands of years. There's still kings and queens. We no longer have a republic. This isn't a democracy here in the United States of America. We have just as much censorship here in the good old USA as they do in Iran. And I think many of you are actually awakening to this, but it's the actual truth. How do the elites handle this situation, right? Where you have 95% or more, let's just say the 99% of the population out of work. Because if you were a truck driver, you're no longer needed. If you're a teacher, you're no longer needed. Have you noticed that all the schooling now is online? That's the greatest freaking scam on the planet. Well, schooling in general arguably is a great scam. You know, get a college degree, spend $200,000 and then don't get a job. Makes no sense at all. And they'll loan you money that you can't default on in the future, even in bankruptcy court. I mean, it's a total freaking scam. It's, again, the money printed out of thin air, blah, blah, blah. You all know that. You're not even safe if you're a teacher anymore. It's all digital. It's all online schools. They record the class once and then sell it repeatedly to thousands of people and have no overhead anymore. So, I mean, again, all these jobs, all these positions that have made up America the Great, as we industrialize to the pre-tech revolution to now, Totally worthless. Totally, if they're not already, about to be eradicated. So what do the elites do? How do they handle this? This might sound shocking and flagrant to some, but they're going to do one or two things because it's the honest to God truth. They're, either going to kill you, and I know that sounds flagrant and shocking, but they're either going to do that or they're going to use you as an input. You know, we saw this in the Matrix. You're like a battery cell. You're going to be some kind of input in the Matrix, but nothing else. You'll be what Steve Wozniak, really the brains behind Apple, who was the partner to the marketer that many people thought was an asshole in the name of Steve Jobs. You'll be used as an input, and that will be all that you are. Again, you'll be like a battery cell. You'll be the dog that Steve Wozniak referred to the AI. You'll be a pet. You'll be sitting in your AI's lap, you know, and they'll just be kind of like petting your head. Like, good Christopher, good boy. That's how crazy it actually probably will be. The intelligence will far exceed in aggregate all of humanity. All of what we know has become this living world. We've seen this projected in film, foreshadowed in countless Hollywood movies. Some films, better than others, explore this topic. We see this in a lot of books. Again, I mentioned The Singularity. I highly encourage you to read it. This is the direction things are going, whether any of us like it or not. So again, from the groundling perspective, how do you, let's be optimistic about this, how do you position yourself for this disruption? How do you become one of the people that go here instead of down here? No easy task. I'm not certain I have the answer, to be honest. But this is all reality. This is all happening now. This is robot warfare. This is mass eradication of most of our society. Again, they either kill you or they create a welfare state where you're just an input. You're no longer needed. Arguably, this is already happening now. One of the reasons I think Obama laid the foundation for the socialization of America. One of the things I think is the reason that people like Bernie Sanders have been able to fill the vacuum of, you know, his socialist democratic platform. This is laying the foundation for what the tech elites know is coming. Another guy I'm thinking of in real estate, Jeff Green, no relation, by the way, has an E at the end, no relation at all. He's a very successful real estate tycoon who, by the way, made all of his billions using synthetic derivatives. Like any of us even understand what that is. He basically bet using an instrument that he created, negotiated with one of the banks when the housing collapsed, and all of a sudden he became a billionaire. You know how I talk about all the time how money is.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there, but that was Christopher Green, AMTV, Robot Warfare, the Genocide of Jobs. And I kind of want to stick on that just for a second. And them using AI and robots, you know, first you have the Amazon thing, the Siri on iPhones. You know, it can help you out sometimes. But when they start turning that into robots and the robots are doing everything, and yeah, you have time to think and ponder. I do see our population getting dumbed down. And of course, AI is going to be smarter than us if we're already being dumbed down. And he talked about us becoming, you know, that battery like in the Matrix where you're plugged into the system. I had this article, and originally from Anon headquarters, anonhq.com, but it's also reposted over at antimedia.org, theantimedia.org. This one is titled Researchers Claim Ability to Download info into brain and post video to prove it. Now, this really could lead to something like what Christopher Green was talking about, and things that were science fiction in the Matrix that are now looking more like a possibility. It says here the classic science fiction movie, The Matrix, which was released in 1999, martial arts was uploaded into Keanu Reeves' Neo brain through a cable connected from a computer to Neo's skull. He received the skills of the art instantly and was able to use it to perfection. This happened in a science fiction movie, but what you were about to hear, that this isn't science fiction any longer. The reality is that a team of researchers in the United States of America are currently developing this technology. Researchers from the Hughes Research Laboratories based in California have announced a way of speeding up learning, similar to what was portrayed in the Matrix movie some 17 years ago. Wow. That just kind of made me feel old for my age. The researchers described a simulator they have developed which can feed information directly into people's brain and teach them new skills in a shorter amount of time. This new process will be far faster than the conventional life imitating art. The process will guide the first step in developing advanced software, making Matrix-style learning a reality. According to information available on the Hughes Research Laboratories website, the researchers discovered that low current electrical brain stimulation can modulate the learning of complex real-world skills. Some researchers have studied the low current in the brain for some time now. In 2011, a team of scientists at Boston University and ATR Computational Neuroscience Laboratories in Kyoto, Japan, predicted that it is possible to develop advanced software that will facilitate instant transfer of skills into the human brain. Some skeptics doubted their prediction, but researchers from the Hughes Research Laboratory have done exactly that. Lead researcher at the Hughes Research Laboratories, Dr. Matthew Phillips, and his team of investigators from the Information and Systems Science Laboratory have used transcranial direct current stimulation in order to improve learning and skill retention. Professional and amateur pilots were used in the experiment. Dr. Phillip explained, we measured the brain activity patterns of 6 commercial and military pilots and then transmitted these patterns into novice subjects as they learned to pilot an airplane in a realistic flight simulator. We measured the average G-force of the plane during the simulated landing and compared it to control subjects who received a mock brain stimulation. According to Dr. Phillips, the experiment revealed that subjects who received brain stimulation via electrode-embedded head caps improved their piloting abilities far better than those who never received them. The reports state that previous research has demonstrated that TDCS can both help patients recover more quickly from a stroke and boost a healthy person's creativity. However, this current study by Dr. Phillips and his team is the first to show empirical evidence that TDCS is effective in accelerating practical learning. Now, you can read the rest of that at the antimedia.org. And that article was researchers claim ability to download info into brain and post video to prove it. Now, we basically could become inputs. We already, in a way, are becoming inputs. What company out there has its hands in robotics, has their hands in AI, and has been creating a database of all information? And you have to look towards Google. And again, they've been basically creating databases of all shared knowledge. Every time you type into Google, it's not just going, this person wants to know this. It's going, this person is wondering why they have, this wrong with them. We have multiple people in that area that are claiming to have this problem. And then all of a sudden, military comes in and quarantines people off, and you might not be infected, but you're stuck in there with the people that are infected, and better hope you have some genetic immunity. It's just, you'd think it's science fiction because that's crap that we've seen in movies. But it's kind of like Star Trek. Things that you've seen on it are coming more and more reality. And you kind of, people go, I don't watch TV that, anymore. And, I'm that way to a point. But one thing about TV is that it tends to predict the future. One, because, it's going, if we have this ability now, what could the future look like? And then now when it's convincing younger people to go, let's create that. Why don't we have it? But with AI, we start becoming irrelevant. It really looks more and more like we're becoming irrelevant. Definitely when you have the elite in control. We're not relevant. Okay, let me go ahead and move on here. Give me a second. Okay. A lot of people lately have been talking about having the same problem I've been having. Browser is using up a lot of CPU. Okay, I got two articles, one from the Free Thought Project and one from CBS News. I'm going to go ahead and go to the Free Thought Project. I want to cover this, and then I got one last one to cover here right after this. This one from Free Thought Project. U.S. entire carrier strike group to confront China. Or this won't end well was the beginning, but U.S. just sent an entire carrier strike group to confront China. Now, if we can get this thing to properly load here. Looks like we're freezing up here. I'll try to get some of this closed out. Come on, come on. Sorry, guys. My browser locked up here. Okay, now I got it back. Says here on Thursday, U.S. Navy announced they dispatched a small armada to the South China Sea, consisting of the John C. Stennis aircraft carrier, 2 cruisers, 2 destroyers, and the 7th Fleet flagship. The U.S. is making their mission clear. We are not scared of kicking off World War III. Confirmed by the Navy Times, the standoff has been heating up on both sides after news in February that the Chinese deployed an advanced surface-to-air missile battery to the Paracel Islands. U.S. Pacific Command head Admiral Harry Harris told lawmakers that China was militarizing the South China Sea. In my opinion, China is clearly militarizing the South China Sea, Harris testified on February 24th. You'd have to believe in a flat earth to believe otherwise. However, China is not the nation sending warships halfway across the globe in a clear attempt to provoke a fight. While China is no saint, they are not the country with nearly 700 military bases in dozens of countries across the globe. You've been responsible for the total destruction of multiple nations, states, in just the past decade. The reason the Chinese have shown a military presence in the region is due to the nature of the dispute over the lands claimed to the Paracel Islands chain. The Paracel Islands, also known as Isha in Chinese and Hoang Sai in Vietnamese, is a group of islands, reefs, banks, and other maritime features in the South China Sea. It is controlled and occupied by the People's Republic of China and also claimed by Taiwan and Vietnam. This dispute over who lays claim to the region dates back decades. Physical violence has erupted between the disputing parties on multiple occasions as recently as 1974. However, since then, the dispute has remained peaceful until now. The U.S. is attempting to claim that the Chinese presence in the region is some new conflict and are touting strawmen such as closed trade routes as a reason for flexing their military sway. But there is no evidence that trade will be affected at all. No country in their right mind would hinder its ability to export, and China shows no signs of halting exports anytime soon. You can read the rest of that article at thefreethoughtproject.com. Again, this won't end well. U.S. just sent an entire carrier strike group. That right there is, again, the U.S. spreading its military pretty thin. You know, we flex too many muscles. We start running out of muscles to flex, and then we've got all of this military spread out so far around the world. We think that, you know, hey, you know, that'll put us at everybody's doorstep, and, you know, that'll keep them from attacking us. Well, not really, because what they learn is, well, you're over here, huh? Well, let me go to your home. Well, guess what? You got how many bases in how many countries? So now how many people from all these different countries might have a reason to go, oh yeah, you're going to come here and tell me what to do? Or police us, run around our country and do what you want? They build animosity towards you. This is just human nature, and a lot of this, when it's a forced situation, it's what hinders the intellectual growth and ability for people to socially interact without violence, because we, in ways, promote the violence, and we wonder why we can't get rid of it. You know, a lot of what's written about, you know, our history all the way up until after World War II showed us as a country that said, you know, we're doing our thing. You know, we're going to prosper. We're going to do our thing. Our communities are sticking to our communities. We're doing our thing. We had more voluntary socialization. Less government. Hey, people had gold and silver. But what ended up happening is we stopped waiting until, you know, everybody started fighting each other to step in and go, you know, enough of this. Now we go in and automatically do that before or after we've created situations. Now what happens when they got rid of gold and silver? They can just print money and print money. They're not backing those little dollars anymore. Well, I have another interesting article here from Zero Hedge. Let me see if I got time to cover it. Not a whole lot of time. It's official as of this moment. Canada has no gold reserves left. Again, this out of Zero Hedge. Oh, come on and load. Here we go. Says 1 month ago, when looking at the latest Canadian official international reserves, we noticed something strange. Canada had sold nearly half of its gold reserves in 1 month. According to the February data, total Canadian gold reserves stood at 1.7 tons. That was just 0.1% of the country's total reserves, which also include foreign currency deposits and bonds. As we noted, the decision to sell came from Finance Minister Bill Manu's office. Canada's gold reserves belong to the Government of Canada and are held under the name of Minister of Finance, explained a spokesperson for the Bank of Canada on Wednesday. Decisions relative to gold holdings are taken by the Minister of Finance. Reached by Global News on Wednesday evening, a spokesperson for the Finance Department said the sale was done in the normal course of business for the government. The decision to sell the gold was not tied to a specific gold price, and sales are being conducted over a long period and in a controlled manner. The latest sell-off is indeed part of a much longer-term pattern of moving away from gold as a government-held asset, according to economist Ian Lee of the Sprout School of Business at Carleton University, Ottawa. Has no real reason to keep its gold reserves other than adhering to tradition. Under the old system, gold backed up currency easily, explaining the U.S. dollar was tied to gold. 1 ounce was worth $35. Then in 1971, for lots of reasons I won't get into, Richard Nixon took the United States off the gold standard. And they try to convince you in here that, that's a good thing. It's a good thing. No. They're selling off their gold because of their debt. Many people claim that the U.S. has already done the same. But they keep our gold reserves a secret. Why? Because if we knew that, people would panic. See, Russia, China, Iran, even, the Saudis and all of them over there with their oil money have also been hoarding gold. They're the ones able to drop their oil prices down to $20 a barrel and kill our oil over here. Kill our economy. It'll be good for the little man at the beginning, but in the long run, we're going to hit extremely hard times. Power shifts are happening because we're unwilling to change our path. Audit the Fed. Things like that. Again, that's why I like gold and silver as one little egg in one basket. It's a hedge. And right now, I think it's something that's important. And it looks more and more to me like countries are having to sell off their gold to keep the charades going. Again, don't forget to check out ucy.tv. There's a support tab at the top. You click that, you can donate to help keep the network going and keep broadcasts like this and the other ones on the network. And also don't forget to check out antityrannynews.com/medal. That'll take you to Moggy Medals. Great prices, great customer service, and great little additional freedom-oriented coins on there too that, you pay a little bit more, a couple bucks more, you get something pretty cool. Check them out. Help support broadcasts like this and the others here on this network. And as we move forward, we're going to have to start going back to communities, bartering, and